Antonio, Brenner, and others to amend and to enact section of the revised code to permit the resident of a long-term care facility to conduct electronic monitoring of the resident's room and to designate this act as Esther's Law.
Question is, shall the bill pass? The chair recognizes Representative Manchester.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of Substitute Senate Bill 58, legislation that would enact Esther's Law to allow residents of long-term care facilities to have electronic monitoring of their rooms. This bill was named after Esther Piskor, who was a resident of a nursing home in Ohio. After her family became concerned about unexplained bruising on her body, they placed video cameras in her room and caught extensive footage of her being physically abused by multiple healthcare professionals. Esther's story is unfortunately one of many in our state. In recent years, aides and nurses from across Ohio have been charged with elder abuse, neglect, and manslaughter. In 2019, an aide in Dayton was caught violently jerking a woman into sitting and standing positions when she could not get up on her own. In 2017, 7 nurses in Franklin County were charged with involuntary manslaughter and patient neglect. Because of a lack of monitoring and accountability, there are many more cases like this that happen today. As chair of the Families, Aging, and Human Services Committee, we heard proponent testimony from a number of people with family members that had gone through horrific elder abuse and neglect in nursing homes. We heard from Esther's son, Steve Piskor, who shared the details of her abuse and how his placement of cameras in her room was necessary to catch her abusers and stop further neglect. Multiple other witnesses had lost their loved ones as a result of such abuse, and they advocated for this bill because electronic monitoring would have likely saved lives. During the committee process, an amendment was added that permits the Department of Health to adopt rules as necessary to implement the requirements of the bill, as opposed to imposing rulemaking requirements. This amendment was supported by the stakeholders of the bill as well as the sponsors. We also added another amendment that adds an exemption from the provisions of this bill if an electronic monitoring device is installed by a law enforcement agency. This amendment was supported by the sponsors and the Attorney General's office. The purpose of this legislation is to give family members of residents in long-term care facilities peace of mind by allowing electronic monitoring devices to be placed in a fixed position within resident rooms. Family members would be able to remotely check in on them and protect the resident from any abuse or neglect. This bill takes into account privacy as well as protection of the residents. It is an important piece of legislation that is a step forward in supporting the aging citizens of Ohio and making sure that they are treated with dignity and respect. Illinois, Louisiana, and New Jersey already have this type of law in place, and 7 other states have introduced similar legislation. Substitute Senate Bill 58 was unanimously voted out of the House Families, Aging, and Human Services Committee. I'd like to thank the committee members, the sponsors of the bill, and the Senate for working so diligently on this. And to everyone in this House, I urge you to vote yes on this. Thank you, Speaker.
Question is, shall the bill pass? The chair recognizes Representative Brent.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm speaking to Substitute Bill, Senate Bill 58. I think God laughs at our plans, and for those who do or not know the journey of Esther's Law, I introduced this last General Assembly, and this journey of even getting here was just very fulfilling, from talking to our union members at SEIU to going to numerous long-term facilities, care facilities, to going to nursing homes, to even being invited to a couple people's churches. Wherever someone had a concern, I showed up, Senator Antonio showed up, and we became this duo of 2, kick-rocking people from Cuyahoga County working on this bill. But this bill, like our chairwoman just said, came from the inspiration of Esther Piskor, who dealt with something that no one ever wants to experience, and that's abuse. And so this bill in particular, it sheds a light on how we have to take care of our most vulnerable population. That's our children, and that's our senior citizens. All of us at one time were young. Some of us are still young. And all of us, if God spares and blesses us, will get old. And we will have to go somewhere, no matter if it's your own home or it might be a long care facility. You're going to get old too. And wherever we decide to go, people want to retire with safety and security because that's our Ohio's promise of how we protect people and why people will want to stay here in Ohio. Remember, that's the goal, and that's keeping people in Ohio, having more people to retire here in Ohio within this. And it does something just real easy. It allows people, especially if you have like a roommate, people always ask me when it comes to this bill, what if they have a roommate and their roommate doesn't want the camera? Try to work with the roommate as much as possible to make sure that the camera itself that's going to be put in the room can be adapted, that it does not show them. Or you have to be in a place where you won't be able to have it at all, but it has to be some type of compromise between the two different roommates. And also, it works with the actual resident themselves, that if that's something they want, then there can be accommodation that will be made so that can be put in their room. It's completely the resident's responsibility to get the camera, to get it installed, and make sure that's all together. But this is a huge step because there's so many things that happen to senior citizens besides abuse. Sometimes it could be a fall. If you are over the age of 60 and live in a long care facility, you are 50 to 75% more likely to have a fall within that time period. So I know there's been a big emphasis on this bill when it comes to abuse, but there's also a thing of just protecting people, sometimes from themselves, sometimes from family. During this journey, I had numerous people tell me how they were robbed by family members being in long-term care facilities. Could you believe that? It's crazy. But stuff like that is really happening where people do not feel protected, they do not feel heard, and they do not feel seen. But I tell you, with the passing of this bill and it's going to the governor's office, there's so many people that are going to feel very seen because Ohio is getting ready for a silver tsunami where we're going to have more people that are getting ready to retire than we have kids that are being born here within our state. So this is a great direction as we are looking to protect one of our most vulnerable populations, and that's our senior citizens, and doing it in a respectable way that they are working with the facility, that if you come to your grandma's or your cousin's or place, there's a sign outside of their door that's saying this room has electronic monitoring. It's no gotcha joke going on. People fully know what's going on within that room. Everyone needs to feel protected because thank goodness, God bless us all, we all get old. So thank you, Esther, thank you, Steve, and thank you for all the advocates and union members all across this state who were advocating to make sure that Esther is not just a name we know for the news, but a form of protection that all of us can have here within Ohio. And with that, I ask for a yes vote.
Question is, shall the bill pass? Chair recognizes Representative Crossman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Permission to speak to the bill.
Representative may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to thank the good work on this bill, this good bipartisan bill by Senator Brenner and Senator Antonio and my colleague, Representative Brent. As she mentioned, this bill came out of a tragic situation that happened actually to one of my constituents in the Cleveland area, Mr. Piskor and his family. And, you know, this is just a great example of what can happen when we truly listen to our constituents about the issues and the needs that they have in their communities. So I want to applaud Representative Brent for taking the lead on this in this House chamber and listen to Mr. Piskor and others like advocates for the elderly that really advocated for this piece of important legislation. I think it's only a shame we didn't get this done a little bit sooner with COVID. I think it would have been nice to have these cameras in the rooms to give people some comfort that their loved ones were being well taken care of. This bill is not a perfect bill. There's no such thing, I think. There's going to be some enhancements I think they're going to be needed in the long term. There's certain facilities that are not included in this piece of legislation, but I don't want to let perfect be the enemy of the good here. We're going to pass this bill today. We're going to get it to the governor, and we're going to keep working to protect our elderly in Ohio. So thanks to everybody for their great work on this bill, and I urge a yes vote.
Question is, shall the bill pass? The House will prepare and proceed to vote. Have all members now voted? Clerk will take the roll. The vote is 87 affirmative votes, no negative votes. The bill has received the required constitutional majority and is hereby passed and entitled.
An act to enact section of the revised code to permit the resident of a long-term care facility to conduct electronic monitoring of the residence room and to designate this act as Esther's Law.
Question is, shall the title be agreed to? Representative Manchester moves to amend the title. If you wish to add your name to the title, please do so at this time. That objection, the title be agreed to. Hearing no objection, the title is agreed to. Bills for third consideration.
Senate Bill number